everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is my colleague, Forbes staff writer, Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.
Of course, over the past year, you, along with your other colleague, Kyle Mullins, and I have been talking about former President Donald Trump's wealth, his legal challenges, and how that is impacting his fortune. You posed this question for Forbes recently: why Trump will need a lot more than $540 million. So first, can you remind us how we got to the $540 million number in the first place?
Sure. That is the result of two lawsuits, one of which was filed by E. Jean Carroll regarding sexual assault, and she won $83.3 million, I think it was, in that suit. The remainder comes from the New York Attorney General's civil fraud suit against the former president.
Clearly, this is an expensive problem when you're talking about anything that costs over $500 million. Can he afford it?
It's going to be tight. I think he can move some things around, and maybe sell some things or take out some loans somehow. There's the possibility of him being able to offload some of the shares that he has in some of his ownership stake, rather, in Trump Media after that merger goes through. But it's not going to be life as usual for the former president.
You wrote this in your piece for Forbes, quote, "He's still going to be scrambling for cash for years to come." Why is that?
Well, on top of the $540 million that he owes in fines, he has another $780 million in loans coming due next 5 years. So that would take us till the end of the next presidential term.
Huge amount of number, short span of time. Let's break it down a little further. Who does he owe the money to? What are these properties? Break it down for us.
Sure. It's a variety of banks for the most part. The first one is due in July, so not all that much time. It's $12 million for Trump Plaza, which is not to be confused with the Trump Plaza Casino that went under and went bankrupt, or the Plaza Hotel that Trump owned that also went bankrupt. This, rather, is a building on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
And what property does he owe the most to?
Well, there are two properties that he is a minority owner to, along with a group called Vornado, and they have pretty heavily leveraged. On one of them out in San Francisco, his share of their debt is $360 million, and another one in New York, his share of the debt is $284 million. And he's a little bit handcuffed in these because he is largely needs to follow along whatever Vornado's wishes are as to how to handle that debt. So that's not something he has a lot of flexibility with.
He has some properties in New York, but what other areas are these properties in?
Well, you've got the New York City, you've got the one I just mentioned in California, you have Doral, the golf course down in Miami, and you also have Seven Springs, which is the estates that he owns in upstate New York.
Who are the creditors or lenders? Are they all the same bank? What does that look like?
Well, it gets a little complicated here because a lot of these loans were collateralized in terms of after they were made, they were chopped up, packaged together with other mortgages, and sold off to investors. So in some instances, it appears that it's, if we were to default on these, it would be the individual investors who would be on the hook. Some of the loans originated with Ladder Capital. That is a Jack Weiselberg, the son of Alan Weiselberg, the former Trump CFO, who recently pleaded guilty to perjury. His son worked there at the time. Famously, we're not seeing Deutsche Bank in any of these. That's obviously one of the big lenders that comes to mind when people think Trump, but they have washed their hands of him by this point.
Talk about that a little bit for us. Refresh our minds. Why is Deutsche Bank top of mind when people think about Trump?
They had famously loaned him a lot of money, and that was even after he had stiffed them and sued them, and then they continued to lend money to him and gave him favorable rates and favorable treatment. His personal banker there really seemed to go out of her way to argue that the bank should continue to do business with Trump. And, at the end, it didn't seem to be like a great business decision on their part, and it certainly wasn't great for their reputation either.
So are you surprised that Deutsche Bank isn't listed here when you lay out his debt like this?
No, it was just a little bit of a reminder as I was going through this, reporting this article out, when I saw their name as one of the previous lenders for Doral before he renegotiated that mortgage, that they popped up there. It was like, oh yeah, Deutsche Bank, I remember them. So it was just kind of a little flash from the past. In that case, Doral and Trump Tower are both been refinanced about 2 years ago with Axos Bank, which started off as with a name something along the lines of the Bank of the Internet. So that's who he's been doing business with most recently.
And when does he have to pay? I know you said one payment starts in July. What does that schedule look like?
So the first payment is, yes, in July, and it's $12 million. So it's either pay or refinance or come up with some other way to satisfy that debt. Then he has another year where he's going to owe $121 million on his 40 Wall Street building. And then the last one, I mean, they go all the way out to 2048, which is one of his properties in Palm Beach residence. So, at that point, Donald Trump would be 102 when that mortgage comes due. So I don't suspect he's really worried too worried about it.
When you added this up, you got to the number $780 million. How is he going to afford this?
Well, that's just in the next 5 years. Overall, it totals $1 billion. He's been in this hole before. We ran an article previously about how he had all this debt coming due shortly after he left office, and he took care of it. He was able to get some money from selling the DC hotel, able to refinance some buildings. So, I mean, that's probably what he's looking to. We reached out; they did not respond to our request for comment.
In your reporting and when you laid out his debt in this way, were there any trends that stood out to you?
The fact that a few of them have been collateralized, that's nothing on his part. That was, the decision of the lenders to do that. So it was interesting seeing a few of those chopped up. The reliance on Axos Bank for his last two, for Trump Tower and Doral, which is a bank that's not all that widely known. Certainly not up there with Deutsche Bank or JP Morgan Chase, who had also done business with him previously. And their CEO, as we reported a couple of years back, had been a Republican donor, even donating money to Trump's reelection efforts.
When you're laying this all out and you're seeing debt reach $1 billion, did anything surprise you?
Not really. I mean, Trump has called himself in the past the king of debt. It hasn't really been true for a while. But the fact that he is this leveraged isn't that too surprising. I mean, we have his net worth at I think it's like $2.6 billion. So it makes sense that he would have a substantial amount of debt, leveraging his real estate empire.
Was he proud of being called the king of debt? That doesn't exactly sound like a compliment to bestow on oneself.
Well, he called himself that, and I can't imagine Donald Trump doing anything but complimenting himself. So yes, I imagine he took it as a compliment.
When it comes to Donald Trump, his legal challenges, and the finances surrounding them, what's next on your radar? What should we be looking out for?
I'm really interested in the True Social merger. That is the social media company or social media platform that he founded. It's owned by Trump Media, and they have a merger that's been going through with a company called Digital World Acquisition Corp. And that merger has been they've been trying to get that through for over a year. But the vote on that, the SEC recently gave okay for the go-ahead, and shareholders are voting on that, which is most likely going to be a yes. So I think we're going to see that in a few months. The former president has a substantial share in what the resulting company would be, although it sounds like he's tied up and not going to be able to offload those shares for a year, but there might be a way he could do it if the board of directors approves. So I think that's one of the biggest things we're looking at in the near future regarding Trump's finances.
Well, you and I talked about the Truth Social merger before. I'm sure we will talk about it again. Zach Everson, per usual, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.